I know many of you probably follow us on Instagram, and you might also follow this guy, James Sylvester, on Instagram. He is a family friend of ours who is an amazing outdoor photographer. We have been blessed to have a number of his photos in our house. He's taken photos of us in the garden. If you go to our website, a lot of the pictures on there that you'll see that look really good were taken by James.
The good ones are from James. Yeah.
So James and I got together and we made a little video about his photographs, and mainly it was because I pushed him into doing it. He has so many cool photographs and he's just putting them on Instagram and not really heavily promoting himself. And I said, hey, let's sit down and do a video and let's talk about why you love outdoor photography and let's share some of your photos. So if you are looking for a great gift to give somebody for the holidays, or you're just looking for a great picture to hang on your wall, consider James's photography. It's affordable. You can get it in canvases and many different sizes. He's also going to start printing on metal, which sounds really cool. I haven't actually seen one yet, but it sounds really neat. And you can also get prints if you wanted to put them in frames. You can go to sylvesterphotos.com or follow him on Instagram at sly_Sylvester to learn more about. You can also go to our website, huntharvesthealth.com/SylvesterPhotos to watch the video. And if you decide to buy something from him, you will get $10 off by using the promo code HHH, all caps, 10. So HHH 10. That will help support the Hunt and Harvest Health podcast, and it will get you $10 off your first photo.
Yeah, and I'd like to add, let me just say this about James. Yeah. If anybody looks at any of his photos that he's got on Instagram and whatnot, they are unbelievable. I still can't figure out how he does it. He's done some hunts with us, and he did come with me on a hunt to eastern Montana. 2 years ago, I believe. We wanted to get him a good buck, and he did. He got a great buck, and after that, he was just kind of taking photos. We got his buck right away. Well, the photos he takes versus the photos I take, like, I don't have an eye for it, but he really does. So all the good photos came from James and his cameras.
Yeah, when we did those pictures with him in the garden last summer, not this summer, unfortunately, we should have done some this summer, but last summer, those are some of the ones on our website. They just turned out really neat. I also like the way he talks a little bit in the video about how he edits. So his editing is also what makes the picture very unique, and especially his wildlife photography. We have a photo here in our living room of a rainbow trout, and that is really what stimulated me when they gave us that as a gift. I was like, oh my gosh, you have to do something with this. These are amazing. So his editing skills are really cool, and what he does with his pictures are really unique. But go ahead and check him out and use that promo code to get a discount. But either way, we like to support people in this industry. We like to support our family and friends, and we like to support people that support hunting and a healthier way of life. So check that out. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Hunt Harvest Health podcast. This is Doc Hillary. I'm sitting here with Ryan, which is a rare treat this time of year. It's mid-October, and he is actually home, which is
it's October.
Rare.
Yeah, September I wasn't here very much, but
you're usually not here in October either. But I think you've have a few good hunts under your belt in the last month, and you've opted out of your mule deer hunt this year.
Yeah, a Washington hunt. For a couple reasons. Yeah, I mean, a couple elk, put them down, and got a lot of meat. And not only am I slammed with work, playing catch up right now, we got some fishing openers that are keeping us very busy, but also our mule deer kind of took it pretty hard last winter. So at least one of the areas that I like to go into. So I don't feel too bad about giving them a break this year and not going in and taking one out of the herd. So got a couple good hunts coming up, which I'm looking forward to. But yeah, here the latter part of October, just staying home, getting stuff done. And
Well, it's your birthday in 2 days.
I'm never here.
As our daughter continually every single day reminds us it's his birthday in 2 days, and
I don't even remember the last year I've been here on my birthday.
Yeah, his birthday falls right in the beginning of opener usually for Washington mule deer. I think in 22 years I've maybe spent less than 4 or 5 years. I don't even think that many with you here.
No, that's always been the best part of having a birthday in October is that that Washington deer hunt we always go on. It's right in the middle of it, so we're usually gone, and I'm up there either by myself or with Joe Piber. We're usually together up there on the hunt. So great place to spend a birthday. But yeah, I don't mind. I know my daughter's pretty excited that she'll get to throw a little party for me this year, so it's pretty fun.
Oh yeah, and you're having a big party. You better watch out.
Well, maybe not a big one, but my daughter, I know how she works.
No, she's the party planner.
She will cut and paste and tape stuff together to make a party no matter what. She does that for everybody. It's pretty cool.
Well, she wants to buy you a mountain bike. That's what she really wants you to have. Because we had a theft at our house.
Yeah.
And Ryan's mountain bike actually got stolen. So she is just every day, Mom, we need to buy Dad a new mountain bike. And I'm like, I don't know what kind of mountain bike to buy your dad. She wants to go to the store and buy a mountain bike. And I'm so, like, my tolerance for actually doing that is pretty low and figuring out which one it is. And you had that bike so long, we couldn't even remember the name of it when the sheriff came.
It was a really good
oh.
bike. It was, it was a mountain bike I've used forever, but an expensive bike. Somebody actually broke into the garage and stole some stuff out of there. Yeah, it's a bad deal.
Yeah, so she'd like to get you a mountain bike, but I'm like, Daddy can maybe, we could go and Daddy can buy his own mountain bike. Oh, she's funny. She's so excited about it. So, yeah, this is a rare year where he's sitting here in mid-October talking, not up in the mountains. So what I thought we could do today is we have had, obviously, a lot of elk meat floating around this house. Ryan has had he had a successful mule deer in Nevada. But a mule deer does not supply the amount of meat that an elk supplies. One elk is pretty crazy. It's a lot of meat. So he's had 2 elk, and we've been processing meat a lot in the last month and a half. So
yeah,
I thought it would be fun because when people see the meat or they see the pictures, they want to know the stories. And I know we don't tell a whole lot of stories on here. I think mainly, we want to talk to other people and hear their stories. And Ryan tends to end up on other podcasts where he's sharing stories on those podcasts. But I think it'd be cool for you to talk about your 2 elk this year because they're pretty cool stories.
We can just do kind of a recap on how the season has gone so far. It's been a really good season. Unexpectedly, obviously that mule deer hunt, which I don't think we even told the story, that mule deer hunt down in Nevada, but we'll do that maybe another day. But as far as elk season, so here in Washington, I had an elk tag for my home state, and that was first and foremost. So it's a hunt I do every year. I go into old haunts typically, but I also always try to look at new areas while I'm investigating my old haunts. It's kind of what I did this year. Always just kind of pushing the boundaries outward and finding other areas. Some years the elk are in there, sometimes they're talking, sometimes they're not. So, this year it was like every year. I don't know how long. It seems like when I go into the elk woods in Washington, the weather quickly turns garbage in no time. So the day I went in, it was great. I don't remember the day. That was in September there. And I went in, solo trip, put a bunch of miles between the trailhead and where I was, and shoot, kind of started off slow. Really, really quiet elk woods. which is never a good sign. Usually when you're hiking in the dark, you like to hear some elk talking from the trail, but I was hearing nothing. And that first day I heard nothing in the little basin I was in. So, quickly I recognized there was some sign. There was definitely elk in the area, but the rut wasn't really happening yet. There was not a whole lot of scrapes. There was a few starting, but nothing aggressive. So I quickly kind of just bombed around in search of areas, and I was willing to put in the days it took, until the rut kicked in, or, at least until I found a bull that was willing to play or I could pick a fight with. But yeah, that hunt went from very pleasant weather in the beginning to I kind of got up into the higher country and it got bad fast. It got sleety, it got snowy. I think a lot of people, just kind of following social media this year, a lot of people, Idaho, Montana, a lot of the states, we got hammered there in September with kind of an unexpected snowstorm. And that was same here in the high country of Washington. We just got a lot of sleet. We didn't get the snow accumulations. We just don't here on the coast. But we did get the sleet and the wet. Temps dropped and all that fun stuff. So I think if I had my preference, I would take a nice cold, dry snow any day of the week over the 32-degree sleet, 34-degree sleet that we typically get here, that for whatever reason just feels twice as cold. It gets you wet, and you got to figure out ways to dry out at night. So it went from, like I mentioned, nice to bad in a hurry. But actually it turned bad the second day, but before it did, I had a really good opportunity at a bull up in this new area. And, I just kind of found it. It was a nice finger ridge. It dropped down and found some wallows and I worked this bull. Everything was perfect. He was actually pretty dang aggressive and picked a fight with him. Kind of worked my way below him. The wind was right. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't coming straight down like I would have, hoped, but it was coming sideways, and he was above me. I worked into a position where he was above me, which, for elk hunters out there, they kind of know that's how big bulls prefer it. If you don't set yourself up below them, they're probably going to go ahead and get above you anyway. They like to come down on you when they're trying to look bigger and be the aggressor and win the fight. So I try to get a little bit underneath them, which worked out well with the wind. So, man, I had that bull within 15 yards, and he was coming over. I was fully drawn, and shoot, the wind switched. It's nothing new. It happens all the time, but that was a pretty dang good bull. He came up and over, and I could see his antlers, and I could see his head and neck, and he was coming in, not looking. He was just coming straight down and looking to fight, and he got that scent line and blew out. It was unfortunate, but I know where he lives, and unless he gets shot, I'm going to definitely be hopefully going back in after him next year. It's a pretty dang good bull. But anyway, so that's when the weather really, really, really turned bad. Wind kicked in, got rainy, wet. And I'm running around up there in a little one-man tent. I'm not smart enough to pack a teepee tent with a stove yet. I don't.
You're not smart enough. I think you're plenty smart enough.
Well,
you just don't like to say that you were living in the lap of luxury.
I have not made that investment. Let's put it that way. This would have been a great year. There was no bugs. The temperature dropped and everything would have been great for a nice little stove and a teepee. But oh well, I'm used to it. I do always pack a little lightweight tarp so I can get out of the rain. Kind of extend my vestibule out a little bit, and not just have the vestibule as a break. So it's nice to have that. But anyway, so yeah, I spent probably another day and a half up there in the tops, and the wind was so bad I couldn't get any bugle, and I couldn't hear anything. It just didn't have that feeling like anything was going to happen that was good. So I ended up kind of dropping down, went to a whole completely different area. Just wanted to get down out of that weather, you know, find some bulls that were in the lower country that weren't getting pounded with weather, and got down kind of in a bottom and marshy area. And I'd seen this area before. I found some rubs in there, and I knew it was kind of an area that would probably, you know, have some rutting action. Cows were definitely always going to be in that low grassy type meadow, and sure enough, I got in there and I started seeing some sign. There were some pretty good shredded trees in there, some real good ones too. And yet I wasn't getting any calls. I still was not getting bugles over in this new area as well. So, yeah, it's frustrating to say the least when you're not getting critters to call back. You know, I knew they were there. I knew they could hear me, but for whatever reason, it was still a little early. We don't have, in Washington, we don't have the luxury of hunting into that 4th week of September. As nice as that would be, our season kind of shuts down, you know, that early part of the 3rd week of September. So we just don't get that late part, and you know, a lot of our bulls rut a little bit later, so they kind of rut into October. But yeah, what ended up doing was just keeping the wind right. I think that was kind of the secret to the success on this one. When they're quiet, you know, and you don't hear them, just keeping the wind right at all times, kind of form a guess to where these critters are going to be, where they're coming down, where they're feeding, and all that. Yeah, one of the mornings I ended up kind of getting on the bottom of this draw and working my way up, and again, nothing talking, nothing calling. So I was doing a lot of brush breaking. I've mentioned this before. It's one of my favorite things to do, to how to, you know, work a big herd bull in, is especially when they're quiet, is just break brush, scrape a lot, snap twigs, make popping sounds, do what elk do, make noises, make elk noises. So Hill's looking at me like, this sounds like crazy talk.
Oh, no, it sounds great. I'm imagining you like running through the forest, like swinging at trees and stuff. I don't know.
Taking branches and breaking them over my
head.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's very liberating.
No, I don't know about that, but brings the elk in.
Yeah.
I don't know about liberating. But
I'm imagining, though, that an elk sounds pretty loud in the forest, like with his antlers rubbing up against things and banging and running through trees. I'm sure when a real elk is doing it, it's pretty loud, right?
It's surprising how quiet they actually are. But where their hooves are stepping on sticks, you know, you got an 800-pound animal stepping on a stick, it pops pretty fast. And it's definitely a distinct pop when an elk steps on a stick. Surprisingly, the only way you hear their antlers, you know, scraping on trees is if they are intentionally scraping them on trees. It's not like when they're just walking, you hear antlers scraping through the timber as they're walking through. They're really good about twisting and tweaking their head. It's pretty impressive. I have no idea how they do it. I've seen them in brush fields. They can blow through an alder field and not make a whole lot of noise. Their antlers, somehow they figure out how to weave them through that mess. And I know I can't get through there without making a whole crud ton of noise. But now the noises that they are making is you know, when they're intentionally out scraping trees, and or just walking. You know, they pop sticks when they walk. So you know, the morning that morning I was talking about, so working up this draw, wind was perfect, and up until that point, the wind is always goofy for whatever reason. I like mule deer hunting in the high country because the wind gets it's more consistent. But elk woods, man, the wind that's like your number one enemy. It's always slapping you in the face. It's always coming up behind you and going the wrong direction at the last minute. And it's just a bugger, but it's frustrating. But this morning, the wind actually happened to be coming down consistently, and it was a pretty wide open meadow. I could see, probably 80 yards out in places. And, I could see, I came on to kind of the feed area that I'd found. There was a lot of grass, and saw some cows up there. There's about 7 or 8 cows. And I knew there had to be a bull. This was, I don't remember what day this was. I should have this memorized, but I don't. It was probably like I don't know.
When did you go?
20th of September, somewhere in there.
I don't know. All your trips seem to blur into each other for me.
Yeah. It was at that point where they're rutting. They're starting to rut. Because the bull that was in there was putting a weapon on some pretty big branches, pretty big trees, pretty big alders, cedars, and all that. So, it was one of those deals where I saw the cows and I knew it was thick enough. There's probably a bull close by, even though he was not making any noise. He was not bugling. He was not chuckling. Absolutely nothing. Because I'd gone, I was up early in the dark pitching bugles in there and nothing. But I knew he was in there. So as soon as I saw those cows, I started scraping a tree. And I always carry around a big, when you're in the elk woods, it's always good. Like if you're in Elky area, I always carry around a pretty big branch that I'm using to scrape up timber or smack trees, or use to snap things off. And I use a little bit bigger diameter hunk of wood than most people might. I don't know why. It just sounds more like an antler to me. So, this thing is like 3+ inches in diameter. It's pretty big. And so I start scraping a tree. Every branch I see, I'm smacking it, breaking it, and I like to slam that stick up against those alders. And it just kind of sounds like they do when they're getting all aggressive and beating up on a tree. And so, I did that. And as soon as I did that, I heard a bull start doing the same thing. He was just off where I couldn't see, and he started scraping stuff up, and he just got fired up. You could tell he was just going at it with this branch. So, I just kept snapping stuff, and if I see something, kicking it, trying to pop it, sound like an elk. And sure enough, man, it didn't take any time, hardly. And that bull, I saw him coming straight in, fast. And sure enough, he came straight in. He turned. He gave me a really nice, perfect. He had no idea where I was, which I was surprised because he was looking straight ahead. He gave me a nice, perfect side shot on him. Which, one thing I like about trying to pick a fight with a bull by breaking brush, and sometimes it's the bugling and all that, screaming, is they like to come in and show off their antlers. After the stick break in and the that whole rigmarole, they usually come in and they give you a visual. They want to intimidate that other bull by kind of showing off, and that's what he came in to do. But he came in hot. He was there was snot pouring out of his nose. He was fired up. He was ready to fight. He thought I was a bull, and so came in, went behind this little fir tree, and I drew. He went past it and gave me a perfect 17-yard shot, and I drilled it. And it was just one of those scenarios. Is like, holy smokes! I've been working for day after day after day after day, trying to pick a fight with a bull or get anything to be really fired up. And I had that one good experience where I was so close, and that was just a wind issue that blew that one up. But now I've been working, and it just happened that fast. It's like you see cows scraping. He runs in, I shoot him, and he did not go very far at all. He went about 125 yards and tipped over. And he tipped over in a pretty boggy, marshy area. That basin, I don't know, that's not really a basin. It's just kind of this hole in the coast of Washington here is really wet and boggy. Some little creeks coming off the hill, and just that topped with all the rain that we were getting. It just never stopped raining. That whole time it was raining, and it was just when he first came in, I could tell it was just a great bull. The red antlers on this thing was really, really, really cool. Really just bright red. These things are they're rubbing on alders, and here in Western Washington, these alders they put out a nice red redness to the antlers when critters, blacktail or elk rub on them. So just almost a bright, almost a fake looking orangey red
they're so
color.
pretty. They really catch your eye.
Yeah, and
Wow.
that topped with, the rain, he was soaked. Everything was soaked. That really makes that color pop. So just a beautiful bull. And man, yeah, every time, something like that happens, you walk up and you're just like, gosh, I cannot believe that happened. But now this animal especially, he was just a huge, for a Roosevelt elk, he had a rack that looked like a Rocky, just a giant. So great bull. It's always unexpected when you get something like that, but everything worked out. And I think it was just a matter of patience, putting in the time and really just being patient with the area. I had a feeling where I started, it just was not going to happen with the weather. It could have maybe, and I would have definitely stuck it out up there if I could hear, but the wind just kind of changed things. So, I put in a lot of miles. It was a lot of miles. I think my inReach tracked 52 miles I put in on that hunt, just the back and forth and everything, till I got to where that bull was, and I got him. So yeah, it was a great bull, and it's huge. These Rosies, these Roosevelt elk, they got a really big body. And I was solo again, and so this was going to be all on me. Unfortunately, my hunting partner Joe, who I usually call, he's always as cool as anybody could be about just like dropping everything and coming and helping. Well, we were slammed with work, so he was too busy to help. So I just decided, well, I'm just going to buckle down and get it done and do it myself. And
how many trips was it?
Gosh, I don't even know. Really.
I think you said it was 3.
It was 100
pounds each load.
Yeah, the total meat poundage, it was 303 pounds total, just straight meat. There's no bone there or anything. That, and then a separate trip for camp and gear, and my and that the head, skull, the antlers, and all that, which is heavy enough on its own. But the bugger about this one was where he fell. It was just kind of a mud hole, so getting it out of that swampy area was one thing. I spent a day breaking them down. That rest of that day breaking them down. The next day, just and I always pack a lightweight pair of these. I think the name is like Chota waders. They're a Gore-Tex wader. They hardly weigh anything. They go in your pack, and they're great for crossing creeks. Too many years of having to like strip your socks off and roll up your pants, and you still end up getting wet crossing these creeks here in Western Washington. So I've gone to adding a little bit of weight and packing a set of those nice hip boot Gore-Tex waders by Chota. They're awesome. So I used those to get myself out of that boggy, swampy mess, and it worked great. But it took me a day to get it just out of the bog back to where there was a trail. And yeah, and then it was just trip after trip after trip, yarding it back to the trailhead, and there's a lot of headlights and night hiking. So which I prefer, because I really like to keep my area secret. So I've talked to people before, and probably the worst thing, I don't even know why I'm talking about this, but one of the reasons, and I've mentioned that I use a packer before. Now, I've used packers before, but one of the downsides of using a packer, I'm just going to put this out there right now, and why I do have kind of gone to just using friends or using myself, is when you let a packer know where you're at, he knows where you're at. And I had a horrible experience a while back. I used a packer, pulled a big old bull out, and boy, at that exact location where I'd hung all that meat, the next year, what do you think was sitting right there at that little flat spot I packed that bull out. A nice big wall tent. Yeah, so you really gotta be careful with that if you're trying to be secretive and not let the world know about where your critters are. So got to be some trust there. But yeah, this one area, there was not a lot of hunters around. There were some hikers though, and I just don't want anybody to see where I'm at, so I'm pretty dang secretive and try to do as much as I can in the dark.
Oh, gosh.
But obviously that can't all be done in the dark. But I try to avoid people's eyeballs if at all possible, especially at the trailhead itself, because I really don't like folks kind of paying attention to where a bull came out of, especially if it's a big one. So very secretive on that. But anyway, so yeah, that was the first elk. That was a lot of meat. Like I said, that was 303 pounds of some really, really good elk meat. So yeah, did a lot of burger with that, did a lot of grind, did a lot of different things, a lot of steaks. And so yeah, that was the first elk hunt of the year. That was Washington. And then I had one more elk tag for the year. I did not purchase an Idaho elk tag this year, but I did buy a Montana elk tag this year. So Montana is interesting for me. I've always kind of chose Idaho over Montana, and I really wanted to get some more knowledge, a little more time spent in the woods of Montana, especially the kind of the western half. I spent a lot of time just researching areas, looking for places, wild chasing deer, late season muleys over there. But this year I kind of went at it. I just wanted to see some new country, visit some old haunts again, and check areas out. That western half of Montana has always intrigued me. And, one of these years I'll pull one out of the northwest corner of Montana, which that is some of the toughest dang hunting you'll ever find. Just it's so thick. But there, there's good numbers and places, especially in southwest Montana. So I kind of went over there, and just with the intention of looking at new country, seeing new areas, exploring a bit, and hopefully come away with a good bull. So that's what I did. I went over and had a lot of spots kind of picked out on the map, some places I had hunted before, some areas that just outside of areas where I'd hunted before, places that looked good, places I'd seen rubs while deer hunting, all that. And, it took a few days. It took a few days to find some areas and some critters that it's kind of, I think one of the hardest things is when you're by yourself, you just got to put in hours. You just got to spend days hiking and covering country and finding them, especially in this new era of wolves. You can cover a lot of country and have it be completely void of elk. I mean, some of the best prime habitat you look at, there should be elk in there. There's just not elk in there. And then you'll come upon a spot that looks like everywhere else, and there'll be a bowl that's got 4 or 5 bulls bugling in it. And that's kind of how a lot of areas have been. For me, at least that's been my experience in some places of Idaho, Northwoods, Idaho, as well as that western part of the Montana there where it's really thick. So saw some great country. Found a bonus buck that I have a Montana deer tag in my pocket, but this buck, I saw him for a short brief second, but he was a great buck, a really good heavy mature buck. And I was not able to get up on him, but he just disappeared into some thick timber. But I got to really see some cool elk woods and elk country. And that was some of my favorite parts. But it was frustrating the first 4 or 5 days. Of course, it's just tough. So I kind of kept changing areas, looking at new country, and I'm just really enjoying looking at new stuff. So ventured to a different part of Montana, a little bit south, and had some where it's more open. There's something about being able to spot and see elk when they're out hunting. It's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. You get to see them, like you get to actually glass up bulls. Whereas here in Washington, sometimes I wonder why I even have binoculars at times. Obviously, I always have them on, but there's times where I don't even look at them throughout the entire day. I'll go days without looking through my binoculars. Similar in North Idaho. It could have been similar there in some places of Montana as well. It's just so thick. Everything is coming into calling. You're not glassing anything up at a distance and going after it. But southern southwest area into Montana, I was looking into some of those areas. Yeah, it's a lot nicer. Well, maybe not nicer, but it is nice to be able to just go and cover country with your eyes, especially when you got a big blanket of snow. Had a lot of snow down there, so you can kind of see tracks with your glass and figure out where the critters are instead of just bombing around. And glass really does help for that. So found a great area, and I was actually tipped off to this spot by a couple of good buddies. They'd hunted it and laid their eyes on some good animals. So went in there and they're gracious enough to say, hey, give it a shot. So went in, checked it out, and I'd always wanted to see this range, and it was pretty cool. Really good area. Got to see bulls, like I said, at a distance. Not probably known for the biggest of bulls, but numbers wise, it's pretty dang good. It's much better than a lot of areas of Montana. So
that is a pretty part of Montana over there, that southwest north.
You grew up in southwest Montana there, really.
I did.
So,
yeah, I like it there.
Yeah, we got to go back and you'll see we're there Christmas time or whatever. We got to go back to Bozeman and hang out and bomb around, and yeah, it's just a great place. A lot of elk.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's similar. Now this, mind you, I don't think I mentioned, this is in October. One of the absolute great things about Montana is their extended seasons. Washington would get 2 weeks. Montana gets 6 weeks. No contest as far as opportunity. Montana just has opportunity galore. It's just phenomenal. And if you don't tag out in archery season, you can go at them with a rifle and extend your season into November. So the opportunities are just endless over there, it seems. But yeah, so this was October. And I knew the rut had kind of peaked and was definitely tailing off. And I still expected to hear some bugling in places, but when I got there, the weather really cooled off. There was a lot of snow. I was chaining up, all 4 tires of my Dodge and trying to get in. It was muddy on the down off the hill, but it was real snowy and windswept on top. So full-size Dodges don't do that great in those conditions, snowy conditions. So, I was definitely using the chains on this one. But yeah, I got up into the tops of this mountain range. And it took me a while. It took me 3 different attempts to get up there. But once I did, it was phenomenal. Found some great area. And so the snow was nice because, again, you can see, find the tracks and find what canyons have bulls and what don't, or what areas don't, or where they have been, or where they're at now versus where they were a week ago. And right now, well, when I was over there, the rut was tailing off big time. In fact, I was there for 4 days. I never heard a bugle. That was my experience in this range. I never did hear one bugle, which made it extremely tough. That's not what you want when you're archery hunting elk. So my dog is tackling me right now.
It's only when you want to sit down and actually talk that the kids or the animals go
She's
nuts and they start attacking you.
The elk were not talking at all. But it was pretty easy to find where they were. When there's snow, there's tracks, and fresh snow, daily snow, it's pretty easy to find them. And I was seeing animals just using the glass, spotting them. So I knew I was in a great area. But without any calling, without any bugling going on, I knew I was going to be at a huge disadvantage trying to get in on a bull with my bow. So, yeah, I was some of the herds had kind of gotten large. I found a group of bulls. Oh, I don't know. There's 5 or 6 bulls in there. A couple of 6s. Nothing great, but decent. What I would consider herd bulls for my state. But I was still kind of looking for a real mature, older class animal. And I found this area where I've been seeing some pretty dang good tracks. And they'd kind of broken off from a main herd and kind of went into the north slope where the snow is obviously crunchy, not as quiet and soft during the day as the south slope, which is kind of benefits them. Obviously, nothing like a hunter trying to sneak up on a bull in crunchy snow. It's really, really tough to do. But yeah, I think it was day 4. I ended up cutting a couple of tracks I came to an area, an opening where that night the 2 bulls had come together and sparred a little bit. And you can kind of see where they spun around, fought, kind of pushed each other around a bit. So, without any opportunity to call and with not one call back at that point, I kind of had to change tactics and figure out, well, it's going to go old school, which, is not super effective, but I'm going to have to try to track one of these bulls down. So what I did. I basically knocked an arrow. I took one of the tracks from the 2, and it was not, it was like, I don't know which bull was the victor. I don't know which one of the bulls was the loser. I just picked a track and went for it. But it did look, they both had really good tracks, good sized tracks. I could tell they were probably both pretty good sized bulls. So, yeah, took a track and figured, well, I don't think these bulls are traveling too far. And what I had seen is they're not moving that far from where they were feeding. So, kind of what I had planned was just to go extremely slow with my bow, get the wind right. Obviously, if the wind wasn't right, I'd go back and get on the other track and try to do something different. But that's what I was kind of down to for opportunities was tracking in the snow. And I could see I'd be much more confident, with a muzzleloader or a rifle in my hand. That would be one thing. But with a bow, boy, you're really, really at odds with success doing it that way. So I definitely wouldn't recommend it. But, when they're not calling, that's kind of what you're down to. So, like I said, I took a track, went after it, went extremely slow. What I felt like I could scan everything ahead and really tell. Obviously the name of the game when you're doing that is try to spot that bull before he spots you. And what I thought I'd try to do is obviously it was crunchy. The angle the side that he was on was the north side. So it was not softening up the snow. It was staying crunchy. It was in the timber, dark timber. And I knew it would kind of be that cold, crunchy snow all day long. So I had to really go slow and really try to spot him before he spotted me. So that's what I did. And as I moved through the woods, obviously arrow knocked, knowing it could happen at any point. I also was just kind of doing some cow calling. I knew I was making noise. I knew he would hear me. But I figured, if I'm making some cow calling, trying to make some elk sounds that might not be so alerted to the sound of a crunch. And so, I try to emulate, how elk would obviously walk through the woods, not just crunch, crunch, crunch like a human, but definitely go slow and then, make some cow sounds. Long story short, I ended up getting up on that bull. And it just happened to be in an area he was bedded up into some timber. But like I figured he would, he stood up as soon as I saw him, he saw me. So it was not like I was so stealthy that I got up on him and found him in his bed and he was just, taking a midday siesta. But no, he spotted me as I spotted him. And I don't think he really knew what I was, but he'd heard the crunching and he saw movement. So, but as soon as I saw him stand up, I drew back. And it's one of those things, throughout a hunt, you're always ranging stuff. I did not have opportunity to range this bull, but throughout the hunt, when times are slow, just try to get an eye for distances, and you do get really, really good when you're in the elk woods. You're in a certain type of terrain, and you're always, bouncing that laser off things. You take a guess and you hit it with a rangefinder, and eventually you get pretty dang good. And I always try to be kind of ahead of the game, knowing that, oftentimes you don't have opportunity to use your rangefinder. Just like in this scenario, I think if I would have waited, pulled my rangefinder up, put it back in, and then drew, I think that bull would have blown out at that point. So, my yardage eye told me 40 yards. And, at that point in the game, usually you're a couple yards either way. You can get pretty dang good at it. Sure enough, so I put my 40 on that bull, and where he stood up, his head was in the timber, but I could see his rack.
Was he above you?
Yeah, he was above me. Well,
40 yards above? Do you have a hard time?
No, he was 40. It wasn't. It was not a steep angle or anything like that. He was above me, but it was kind of a bench, just above me on the hill, but not really above me at a real steep angle at all. But where he stood up, I could see his antlers. Still not knowing how big he was, he just looked like a really good mature bull, and his track was really good size. So I knew, this would be an animal I'd love to take. And with the opportunity that, where I was in the hunt, I'd been there for a while. I knew opportunities were going to be pretty tough, just with the snow, the crunch, the lack of bugling, where we were with the rut, bow in my hand. So at this point, I was looking for any mature bull, and so I drew quick and got a great 40-yard shot on him, and absolutely couldn't believe it. I mean, it's just like out of nowhere, perfect situation. You get that shot, and he takes off. So, I mean, I was just like, holy smokes, can't believe. Like it does every time with elk. Things can be really, really slow. It just seems like nothing's going to happen. This is just a waste of time, or yada yada. But man, I've been in so many instances like that these days you just kind of expect it to happen, because it can happen just so fast. And again, so many times you just, right after you stick a bull, you're like, gosh, I just cannot believe that happened. Never thought it was going to, and then bam, there it is. There's your shot. There's your opportunity. Just so fast. So got a shot on that bull. He took off. I gave it a little bit of time. I ended up kind of working my way up. I just wanted to see. I knew I'd put a good hit on him. Everything executed just perfectly. Felt good. Looked good. Knew I'd put a good hit on him. So I went up and kind of eyeballed where he was in the snow, and sure enough, there was blood. Not that far down the trail where he took off to. So I kind of backed off a little bit more, gave him a little more time. I just wanted to make sure I didn't push him. So, but I was feeling pretty good about being able to track this bull in the snow. That's always a huge advantage. Shoot. I went back in, arrow knocked, found a blood, the blood trail. I don't know. I went maybe 100 yards, and from down below in the basin, in the snow, fresh bear track. Fresh bear track comes right up and gets right on the trail where this bull had gone. Now, when I say crunchy snow, it was crunchy, but it had softened up just by the temperature of the day. Now we're at midday, and so this was obviously a fresh bear track. and it was like a bloodhound. He came up, he hit the track of that bleeding bull, and immediately went step for step with that elk. And so now, my guard is up. Now I'm thinking, holy smokes. And across the canyon, the day before, there were some good sized grizzly tracks, and plenty of grizzly sign in this country, and it's really well known for grizzly. And so, this was obviously a smaller track than a grizz. I figured, this is definitely a black bear. So I don't know what I would have done if that would have been a giant grizzly track, but I could tell it wasn't. And so I kept going. Arrow knocked. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned, I always carry bear spray, especially in these mountains, just because I don't carry a sidearm, but I do carry the bear spray. I'm pretty confident that that stuff will work a little bit better. Maybe not. There's arguments out on that one, but a little more confident with a big waft of pepper spray versus a shaking hand and a handgun. So
first, let me ask the question: how close does the bear have to get to actually spray it in the face?
Well, see, I'm no expert with bear spray, but I will finish the story, and
okay.
I know.
I'll ask these questions when we're done.
Yeah, I know how far. Yeah, this one sprayed. So I keep continuing on, but now I'm very. I don't think it's nervous. It's just you're jacked up. Your heart's racing. Now you're expecting, some serious action. This bear's not going to stop. He's either going to be, ripping your elk apart, or you're going to come around a corner. He's going to be right in front of you. So I knew there was going to be something ahead of me. So I continued on again, really slow, methodical, to really scan, above me and in front of me, just to see ahead and try to locate whatever before I get there. So sure enough, I get to where I can look ahead about 30 yards, and I see this blood all over the ground, and but there was no bull in it. So I got a little closer, and sure enough, it looked like, from a distance even, it looked like there was a scrap. There's stuff kicked up all over the place, blood all over the place. It wasn't just an elk bed, but it was an elk bed. It looked like that bull went there, he bedded up, and that bear probably came up onto him before he was dead, and he got that bull up. And that bull obviously, faced off with him, and they went round and round. And yeah, I took a lot of photos of this area after the fact, but so they had a tussle right there. Like I said, there's dirt kicked up, blood all over, and this bear was just circling and circling and circling this area. So now I'm really cautious. I'm looking around, and I take a few more steps, and I look up, and there's the bull, and the bull is still standing. I see the big yellow body bull, and he's not that far away. He's about 40 yards above me, but his head's down. He's just basically a dead bull, but he's still walking. And that bear is right in front of him. He was just pacing. He was going back and forth. He just looked real nervous, and obviously he was not going to leave. And so, I set the pepper spray down. First thing I think is I got to get an arrow in that bull. This bull is still standing up. So that's what I did. I drew, and this one was a 40-yard shot. And so I slipped another arrow in him, and this bull was so out of it. He was on the verge of just collapsing. It was just like sticking into a pincushion. There was no reaction when the arrow went in. And like I said, it was just like a dead elk on his feet. But he started staggering, and obviously that bear, look, he saw me down below. He came as soon as I let that arrow loose. That bear came charging down at me. I had set the can of pepper spray in the snow, reached down, grabbed it, and dropped the bow, and immediately had that pepper spray up. And that bear came down and got, I don't know, 15, 20 feet away, and he was standing there, and he did not like, not that I can, read what a bear is thinking, but he looked like he had no intention of walking away when he saw me. And so I let him have it with the pepper spray. And I gotta say, I've never fired that stuff before at a bear, but it's pretty impressive, the big cloud that comes out. And that bear took it in the face, and he took off. And man, I think I can stay pretty cool, calm, and collected just with my nature. I think I stay pretty calm at times, but I could not stop shaking at that. It was just so intense, so much craziness in such a short amount of window. I just arrowed this great bull, and sprayed this bear in the face with pepper spray. It takes off. My bull's down. He's 40 yards above me. Looks like a great, mature, big old 6-point. And yeah, it was a pretty unreal experience. And fortunately, that black bear took off the other way. And fortunately, again, it was not a grizzly that ran through that cloud of pepper spray and got me. But yeah, holy smokes! I mean, just the adrenaline rushing through and the excitement at the same time. It was that was a pretty cool experience at the time. I mean, I was shaking, I was smiling, I was happy all at the same time. And so then, I wanted to really kind of see what happened here, and looked like that bull had bedded down twice, and that bear had got him up. Probably nipping at his hamstrings or whatever, trying to start his meal. But yeah, shoot, that bear had paced and obviously done circles around that bull for a while, and blood all over the place, and it was just a pretty grisly scene. And yeah, so I went down and made a short video, or I tried to make a short video. I grabbed my phone out, and I wanted to kind of show the scenario, this whole scene that I was looking at. I could hardly hold my phone still. My hand was shaking. I tried to grab it with two hands, but yeah, it was pretty cool. And so yeah, I ended up making a video of this whole thing, showing where the bear had come in all the way to where he had had that scrap with the bull, and all the way up to where the bull finally laid down and died. But yeah, I think after that, I'm not really sure how much pepper spray is in a can of pepper spray, like how many seconds you have to pull the trigger. I definitely hammered it for a couple seconds, but I'm assuming there's a significant amount more. I need to just empty that can of bear spray probably and just figure it out. No. But yeah, so went up, broke down that bull, and I tell you what, there's always gray jays and squirrels and critters popping sticks and making noises. And I've never had a time breaking down an animal, because remember, this is dark timber. It's pretty dark in there. Everything's kind of close quarters, and so every little stick, every little chatter, every time a bird would flap in a tree right next to you, you're thinking of bears barreling down on you, ready to take his prize. But no, that bear never came back. So I never did. I had one eye kind of glancing out, just expecting that bear to come sneaking in. And that pepper spray obviously does a number on their nostrils, and he did not come back. So yeah, I probably set a speed record as far as breaking that animal down. Now, I never, just because of where this bull was, I never pack bone out, but I actually quartered this elk out. Hit the quarters off and, threw them in bags, threw them in the pack. And my first intention was to get him out of those woods and into kind of a meadow where I could have a little more open, so I could see. So I did that. I broke him down, got all the meat stripped off, and started yarding trips out. Got it into a big opening and piled it up there for the trek out. So yeah, that was Montana for me. And then from there, it's by myself, so it was just a lot of back and forth, a lot of trips. And now this bull he was a great, 6-point bull, big mature bull. Not as big as the Rosie that I took here in Washington as far as body wise, but I still got 240 pounds of meat off him. So, that's, well over 500 pounds of meat we've got this year for elk, which is great to have.
Crazy.
Obviously we're not able to eat that much, but we have a lot of folks around us, family, that either weren't successful or they just don't get opportunities to go out and hunt. So we've got a lot of people that will utilize a lot of this meat. Folks that could use it, and they will use it. So we will definitely have a lot of people we're able to kind of pass meat to. But that's one advantage of getting an elk or two is that's a lot of meat. The other advantage is you get to kind of get creative with how you make up the meat. You get to build steak, create all these different cuts of steaks. Obviously, you do that, but then every year you kind of like to try new things. This year we did a bunch of bratwursts, did a bunch of different just mixes for burgers. I made some sausage with like an Italian blend that we grow, the herbs we get out of our garden. And then, I did some spicy stuff. I did some jalapeno stuff from the garden. And it's just fun to play and get different little recipes and blends mixed up with a lot of the burgers. So that's kind of what we've been doing here. We're up till, spent a couple of late nights, midnight, just trying to get these things cut up and ground. And usually I'm doing it all by myself, but
I wasn't much help. I had to see patients
for like
all
a
weekend.
half an hour the other day.
I helped the other night. I stuffed bags for a good couple hours. Yeah. It's this time of year gets harder because the days get shorter and getting up isn't quite as easy. It doesn't get light till later, and I don't know. We're working and stuff, and then I had a couple busy weeks of getting our Sthealthy, putting together the dehydration and canning guide. Once we got all the stuff put together for it, Ryan went on his elk hunt, and then I had to actually format it, and that was a lot of work. So I think this week was I feel like a downer week for me. I feel like I need to sleep or something more. But yeah, we have a lot of meat around here.
I know. With all that hunting in September and into October, like it was October 10th that I ended up killing that bull. Yeah, definitely feeling it. As far as nutrition wise, I feel good eating the meals that I'm eating back there, but it doesn't really matter how good you're eating. You come away tired.
Yeah.
It's packing bulls out by yourself is hard, and it can be a huge challenge, and it's just a grind. You basically just have to put your head down, throw the headlight on, put your head down, and grind. And one thing I like to do is I just listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
I listen to podcasts on my phone while I'm, humping meat out of the hills. It's just, it just passes the time, one foot after another, and listen to something good. Listen to, a lot of Rich Outdoors and Gritty Bowman. All these podcasts I needed to catch up on, and a lot of Eastman's Elevated. So, it was great. I love it. It's hard, but after you're done and you slap that last backpack onto the tailgate of your truck, that is quite a feeling when you get done with it all. And I came away from Montana. Just it's so much of a different feeling in Montana. You just get to see so much more stuff. I saw fox. I had this little fox when I was packing my bull out. A little fox came down and sat like 20 yards in front of me. First, I thought it was a coyote. Came out of the brush, came down, and then he just sat there and looked at me. Cool little red fox, had not a care in the world that I was there. And saw, a lot of really good moose. Saw some great bulls in Montana. A lot of cow moose there. Those bulls are rutting right now, so you can kind of play with them. You can, kind call them in pretty dang easily. It's a lot of fun that first week in October in Montana. Just get to see a lot of critters. So
yeah,
it's a fun trip. But that's kind of the wrap on elk season for me so far. It's over. I don't have any more elk tags. I don't think my body could handle another elk trip right now. But
we'd have to invest in like another. I think a lot of our meat. Fortunately, we have commercial walk-in coolers across the street because I don't even think our freezers in the house can.
We're really
take
lucky
the capacity of what we have right now.
Because when you get home, you don't have to get right on it. You can, leave it in a game bag, hang it up in the walk-in cooler, and let that air get on it. And, you can give it a few days if you don't have time right away to start breaking the meat down and doing all that. So it's we're just super lucky in that respect that we have that with the business.
Yeah.
But so that's been the season so far. A couple more hunts coming up, so we'll probably get to talk about those when they're all over. Hopefully there's some success there. But it's been it seems like elk season went in the blink of an eye. I mean, it's came and gone in no time. The whole year, you're anticipating, you're waiting, you just can't wait for September to show up. And it seems like every year you get older, it's there and it's gone quicker than the year prior. So definitely got to take advantage of that month and a half. It's short-lived. So now we're rolling into bad weather, wind, rain, getting a lot of snow in the mountains. I think we're going to have a really good mule deer rut this year. So we're really looking forward to November and getting back into the hills of Idaho and Montana and chasing some ruddy bucks around and getting in on that. Yeah. Work your tail off in the mountains.
Oh, don't even start with me. You love it. It's your thing. Yeah. So
we're going to have to start talking train to hunt because spring will get here in no time after hunting season.
Yeah.
Got to start ramping it back up. And, that's one thing I can say about going into this year is I felt great. And, every year, even before train to hunt, I've always felt great. I always try to stay in shape, but the train to hunt is just, it's changed everything. You're just that much more in shape. You're preparing for these challenges. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the train to hunt season to get back after it and do a couple states. Trying to get Washington on the board so we can get one here again. But that's going to be exciting. Get after it, and that'll be the next challenge is just training to try to tackle these train to hunt events and get me back out shooting the bow again a whole lot and working out, running, all that fun stuff.
Yep. If you want to find the show notes for this podcast, you can at huntandharvesthealth.com/podcast/2017 elk. All right. Well, until next time, everybody, have a great week.
Hey, folks. Thanks for listening to the Hunt and Harvest Health podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Visit our website at huntharvesthealth.com for more podcast stories and recipes. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Hunt Harvest Health. You can also message me at Sthealthy Hunter, that's STH, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. Also tag your photos Hunt Harvest Health or Get Sthealthy as we enjoy seeing what you guys are doing as well.